Hello guys, this video is an introduction to one-point perspective. Getting started here, I have a horizontal line going across my paper, and the vocabulary word for that is a horizon line, and the definition is where the sky meets the ground. You guys have all seen a horizon before. And then I have a point right in the middle there, and that's my vanishing point. That's where all of my lines will appear to converge. It's where everything recedes to. And that is, we have one vanishing point, and that's why it's called one-point perspective. Now let's write down a couple things here that you should keep in mind when you're getting started. I know you can't read that sentence, but it just says start with the plane that is facing you. So whatever it is that you're drawing, there should be a plane that is directly facing you, and that's what you start with. And then when I'm doing these cubes, I only have three types of lines. A horizontal line that's going side to side, a vertical line that's going up and down, and an orthogonal line, and that's the line that is receding to the vanishing point. So let's take a look at some of these lines in real life. So here we have a photograph, and you can see a lot of these lines that we've been talking about. So let's just start with the easy one, start with the horizon line. That is our line of sight. We're even with that. That's where our eye level is. That's the horizon line. And then you have that vanishing point right in the middle where all those lines appear to be pointing to. So that's your vanishing point. And then all of these lines that are going away from me, those are all orthogonal lines. And you see them all over the place in here. That's why it makes it kind of an interesting picture. All of the railings, you see the bars on the gates, the sides of the lights, and this is pretty common looking down a hallway. Yeah, you can look around the room and you can see like the tiles on the ceiling going away from you like that. When you walk down the hallway at school, you'll see something similar to this with the lockers. And so all those are orthogonal lines. And then some of the other lines that I mentioned, I only had three of them: vertical lines, horizontal lines, and orthogonal. So here I just highlighted a bunch of the vertical lines. And then the last one would be the horizontal line, so the bottom of these levels. That's like the second level, the third level. The fronts and backs of the lights are horizontal lines. And those three lines make up almost all of the picture except for the organic lines in the people. And we can look at the people here in a second because they demonstrate foreshortening. We can look at the size of the head of the person that's closest to us, and then the middle, and then some of the ones that are further away. And you see how much smaller those circles get. And we can look at the height of that figure right here, kind of in the center. Now compare that with the person that's just a couple tiles back, and they're nearly half the size. And so that's a great example of foreshortening, the illusion that things get smaller as they recede away from you. Because of course, that person isn't that much smaller. It looks like two adults. But that is perspective or foreshortening in action, and you can see it in the lights too. You can look up and you can see a light over you. Then you look across the room, and then it's just tiny. All right, so let's kind of keep that in mind when we start here. I'm going to draw three cubes: one above the horizon line, one on the horizon line, and one below it. Now I'm keeping in mind that sentence that I wrote down. I'm going to draw a cube, but I'm starting with the plane that is even with me, that is directly facing me. So it's just a square right now. It's just a two-dimensional square, four straight lines. And then from each one of these corners, those are planes that are receding away from me. So I will use orthogonal lines to draw the tops and bottoms of those planes. And I will use a ruler to make sure they're straight, and those are the lines that are receding to the vanishing point here. Now before we end those cubes, let's take a look at this illustration. So I have my cubes sitting on the horizon line right now. So they're even with my eye level, so I don't see the top or bottom of them. Now if it's to the left of me, then I see the cube's right side. If it's to the right of me, I see the cube's left side. If it were directly over the vanishing point, I wouldn't be able to see anything. The sides would be behind it, the back of it would be behind it, top and bottom. I don't see those because, again, I'm eye level with it. But then as we start moving this around in space, then that's where people can start to be a little bit confused. So here's an example. And we have, as it moves above our eye level, well, then we start to see the bottom of it. And then as it drops below our eye level, then you're looking down and you start to see the top of it. And then the same thing's true as it moves left and right of the center, then you'll start to see those different sides. Now try to keep that diagram in mind as we do this next step here. So I need to make the back of my cube. I need to end it. So I line my ruler up and I slide it back and I make sure that I have a horizontal line that is parallel with the horizontal line in front. And then I hit that corner, and so that means that my plane changes directions, so then I make a vertical line, and that vertical line is parallel to the vertical line in front. So just to reiterate that point, I want to highlight some of those lines that I'm talking about on this image right here. So here you can see my orange line, and that is on the front plane, and then my orange line on the back of the object is parallel to it, and then same with that second cube that is below. So hopefully that can help you visualize that those two lines are going the same direction, that they're parallel planes. And then here's just the example of the vertical lines with the blue being parallel to each other. So end those, make them however long you want, erase the extra orthogonal lines, and you got some nice cubes left over. So I'm going to start increasing the difficulty a little bit now. I'm going to start with this house shape. So pretty similar to a square. I have my horizontal lines, my vertical lines, and then I have a new line, that diagonal line for the angle of the roof. And then I will make my orthogonal lines from each one of those points, including the point where the roof meets the wall. Now I need to end it. So the same concept of keeping parallel is true. So I line up my ruler with the angle there, slide it back, keep it parallel. I change directions, it's a new plane, and then I have a vertical line in the back to end it, and there you go. Pretty nice little house. And we're going to get a little bit more complicated here now. I have an organic shape, this heart shape. So I don't have the horizontal lines, I don't have the vertical lines, now I have curved lines. So I don't really have points the same way. I have one right in the middle there where the two curved lines meet. But then where do I put my other orthogonal lines? What I do is I line up my ruler with a vanishing point, and then I slide it to the furthest point, and then once the ruler would go off of the heart, I stop, and that is where I make my orthogonal line connect to. There you go. Now to end it, I have to keep parallel to the front, so I have to match that curve. I have to match the curve of the heart there. And so it might help you to kind of trace that curve, to feel the way that your hand needs to move. Made it real shallow there, kind of like a box of chocolates. And then you erase your extra orthogonal lines. And there you go, you got a three-dimensional heart form now. Now we're going to get tricky with this next one. This one might be a little tough. I'm going to do a star. Now, the way that I do a star is kind of that, you've all done a star this way. It's kind of the cheat code to a star. You draw those crossing lines. I'll do it really lightly, and then I'll go over that light sketch with some darker lines, and that way I'll have a nice, moderately proportionate. It doesn't need to be perfect by any means, but you do want it to be fairly close. So that's how I do it. I start with that light star and then just kind of outline it. Now I have lots of points on this. Every point that comes out and in, I need to consider for an orthogonal line. So those points coming out, I think most people get, but those points in right there, that can be some tricky. Those ones can be a little tricky sometimes. So I can see that bottom one, and depending on where your star is, you might have different points showing, and so you can just kind of check. I can hold it up, and I notice, yep, I'm going to see that top one, and so I have an orthogonal line coming from that point too. Now I'm going to end it, and just for some reference, I'm going to do a 1/2 centimeter. So this one's pretty easy because I can see where it hits the corner and it needs to change directions. So I don't need to necessarily know the length there, but for like that top point, for example, I don't really have anything to go off of for how deep to make it. So I can use that measurement that I already have, the 1/2 centimeter, to make that line. Now it does kind of line up with the bottom leg. If yours is straight enough, you can just do that. But sometimes these get a little crazy. But that way it's the same depth. It's a consistent depth for the whole star. And there is a three-dimensional star. Now the next step I'm going to do here is right in the middle, right in the center of this page, I'm going to make some big block letters. I'm going to make the letters TRF. To start with it, I'm going to give myself a box to work in so that all my letters are the same height so that I have straight tops and straight bottoms. You know, especially for like the top of the T, I want that to line up with the top of the F, for example. I'm making a line for the bottom of the top of the T, and it'll be the bottom of the top of the F, if that makes sense. So you can use your ruler quite a bit here to get your letters to be pretty symmetrical. Again, they don't need to be perfect, but they should be fairly close so that the perspective actually works. Now, you should be able to kind of work through this on your own. We've covered a variety of shapes, and the only thing that might be new here would be the inside of the R. So just keep an eye on what I do with that, because remember, you're seeing inside of the R. It's a three-dimensional form, and you're seeing inside of that hole. So you'll see the back of it through that little opening. So just pay a little bit of attention to that. Otherwise, you should have the rest here. And I'm just drawing the backs of those forms, ending them, and then I'm kind of just pretending that I have a light source coming from the upper left up above there and adding some value underneath, and that helps make it look a little bit more three-dimensional as well. But there you go. There's a quick introduction to one-point perspective.